You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the #1 resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 3. My name is Jack. I am your host for this podcast, and I am super excited to have you here. This podcast is all about helping you grow and manage your function musician business. Each week I sit down with an amazing guest to discuss what's worked for them, what hasn't, and the valuable lessons that they've learned along the way. And together we explore how to build successful businesses without burning out in the process. I'm not going to chat too long before getting into this one. There's just a couple of things that I want to remind you of before we get started. So firstly, I've put together a free guide called 7 Essential Marketing Strategies for Function Musicians. This guide will help you figure out where you should be putting your efforts this year with some actionable tips that will help you get started. It's completely free and you can download it right now by visiting www.infocusrecordingcompany.co.uk/marketing guide, and that will also be in the show notes. Secondly, I want to remind you that I am running a giveaway for this season where you can win £100 over on my Instagram page, which is at the Full-Time Function Musician. All you have to do is comment on a post and share one of your favorite episodes. Super easy, and you can just grab £100 that you can spend on some new equipment or something that's going to help you grow your business. Also, by leaving a review for the podcast on whatever platform you use, you can get 5 more entries, and leaving reviews is super, super helpful for me. So please go and do that. And I think that's it. So let's get into the episode. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Greg Coulson. You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, I'm joined by the incredibly talented Greg Coulson. Greg is a British musical powerhouse whose artistry spans soul, classic rock, blues, funk, and jazz. Known for his electrifying stage presence and dynamic performances, Greg has carved out a reputation as one of the UK's most exciting and versatile musicians. Alongside his original music, Greg is also a world-touring session musician, producer, and successful function band leader. Greg, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, Jack. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks so much for coming on, having a chat, and managed to do that in one go as well.
It was a great intro. That was really cool. I enjoyed listening to you.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. As I said, I've seen your live show, so if that's anything to go by, then this is going to be a good episode. So yeah, just to kick things off, always like to go back and learn a little bit about you, kind of where you got started, and the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, cool, man. I am from Sunderland originally, which is in the northeast of England, and I got into the theatre side of things before I actually even realised I could play an instrument. So I've always been into the performing arts, I suppose, from being like very, very young as well. I think I started when I was about 4 or 5, just doing poetry.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, and a little kind of
that's young. That's young for poetry, isn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to think. Actually, I must have recited my first poem when I was in nursery. Actually,
yeah,
it was about a fish in a polythene bag. That was really sweet. I think that's my earliest memory of doing anything that's kind of directly related to performance.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that the other day and thought, I don't know, it's just an odd memory. But yeah, both my parents are very, very musical. My dad has just got a very eclectic taste, and his music is life for him. Plays a little bit of bass, bit of piano. He would not refer to himself as a musician, though. I don't think he's more of a kind of a connoisseur of music. And then my mum is also into performing arts and stuff, so she's a great singer and a fantastic actor, and she kind of got me into that side of things. So the two met in the middle, I suppose, and it kind of pushed me forward to have a career in music. I started playing the piano. Well, from my grandparents had like a beat up old upright that they'd had in their family for a long, long time. I think it was my granddad's mum's piano that they had in their front room, and I used to bash on that and be interested in the pedals and the sustain, constantly jamming my fingers in the sustain pedal when I was a little boy, crawling underneath the piano. So I used to plonk on that. And yeah, just we got an upright piano, I think, when I was about 7 or 8 from a tip, and that kind of just that just ended up in the front room, and I learned to play things like The Entertainer by Scott Joplin, and that really got me into the kind of the early jazz and rhythm and blues side of piano.
Yeah.
Not that Scott Joplin is rhythm and blues, if we want to talk about genres, but definitely that type of playing, you know.
Was that influence from your parents as well, with the kind of music they were listening to and stuff, or did you just find this by yourself?
No, I found that Scott Joplin piece by myself. I can't remember how it came about, actually. I think my piano teacher had played it to me once, and that was it. But in terms of what I'm actually exposed to, musically speaking, like from, you know, the decades, I suppose, I was really into the Beatles from an early age. Mm-hmm. I loved the album Abbey Road, things like Octopus's Garden. And then my dad used to play me Steely Dan records from like a really early age. So I've got memories of me being in the back of the car singing along to stuff like Babylon Sisters from Gaucho, which is kind of what led me on to doing what I'm doing in my solo career today. I'm such a fan of their music. I kind of incorporate it into what I do as in my solo projects, or as much as I can, as much as people will allow me to. So yeah. And then I kind of it just evolved from there, really. I went on to, I always sang when I was a kid, and that was off the back of being in theatre. So I never had any confidence issues with that. Yeah. I don't have a particularly great voice, but I definitely can hold my own, and you know, it's something that is hand in hand with being able to play the piano and being able to play the guitar. I suppose it's just having the ability and the confidence to bang out a tune, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your live show as well, and there's a lot of performance in it, which just like it makes the whole show better. Did you think that comes from the stage sort of stuff, or? Yeah,
I think it's an important part. I think it's just a natural thing for me to do. I find it really difficult not to perform on stage.
Yeah.
I'm 34 now, and I do think I've kind of lost that. It's a little bit of the energy that I had in my 20s for one reason or another in my solo show. I don't know why, but I think that's just maybe to do with the fact that I'm playing more piano now, and it's more kind of it's really great when you're playing the guitar because you're able to move with the instrument. Mm-hmm. When you're behind the piano, you've got to find ways to, I don't know, perform whilst you're stationary.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's a different beast entirely, and because I'm able to do that on the guitar, I do find it restrictive and I do find it frustrating. It's weird, man. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone else out there who's a multi-instrumentalist who finds that equally as frustrating. But there are different things you can do on the piano performance-wise that you can do on the guitar, and vice versa. So. It's really
I feel like you gave yourself a bit, because when I saw you had sort of the at least three sort of sides to the keyboards all set around you, and just like running around to each different one, it made it really exciting.
Oh, cool! I'm pleased you think that. And that's it, isn't it? It's like you're trying to. It's a bit of a statement, isn't it, with those two keyboards? I think.
Yeah.
As much as it's a sonic thing, it's definitely got a vibe to it on stage. I think it looks cool.
It does, man. Yeah, it does.
I enjoy being behind that in a little triangle enclosed. Yeah. So, yeah, man. But that, I mean, going back to where I started out, it just evolved from there, and I just ended up. Music just became my life. I think when I was probably about 13, I just really found a rhythm with it, and I couldn't get out of it, and it became a compulsion after a while. Mm-hmm. Listening to music, playing music, learning how to play in a band, and you know, I mean, without me even realizing it, I've kind of been an MD since I was about 13, 14. I didn't know what the musical director was, but I've always been controlling and, you know, the elements of a band from being young, I suppose, and that's that just kind of carried on, you know, throughout my career once I left school. So it was just an evolution, I suppose.
So where would you say your career kind of started? I mean, were you starting to make money already at sort of 13 years old, or did that come a bit later?
Yeah, so we started playing pubs. I had a little band that used to go and do, I don't know, little kind of like boozers in the county of Northamptonshire and Leicestershire. So we used to go and do. I think my first paid gig was in the Nag's Head in Market Harborough, and it was just. Yeah, I still just have really fond memories of doing that, because we used to do when we were 15, we were doing like Live and Let Die by Wings, and I think we were doing loads of Kinks music and Green Day, and just trying to and loads of Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. I remember we did like Couldn't Stand the Weather and stuff, which kind of came from my love of rhythm and blues and blues music. So it was just an excuse to kind of pile in on the, being in a band situation, and having fun and just being with your mates, but also as well, getting £150 between 4 15-year-olds to split was an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I can imagine, man.
Having the income, whatever that would whatever the split is on that, 35 quid or something. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician, so but yeah, that was exciting. The fact that you get an envelope filled with notes. I don't know. It's funny.
I mean, I'm sure that's a lot more money than most people were making as a musician at that age. Like, I was playing gigs and I don't think I would have made a penny.
Well, maybe, I don't know, man. I just think it's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like, it wasn't the reason that I was doing it at all.
Yeah, of course.
It was the fact that you could actually make a little bit of money out of playing music, I think was quite exciting for me at the time. I remember feeling that. And, it was just funny. But the Nag's Head, still there.
Yeah.
It's a good pub. I was in Market Harborough the other day, and I was actually with my dad, and I said, that's when I did my first ever gig, because the thing is my parents are separated, so my dad still lives up in Sunderland. We moved down to Northamptonshire when I was 11, so I kind of met all my bandmates and my friends in the Northamptonshire area. So that's how that happened.
Anyone you're still playing with?
No, they've all gone off to do different things. I mean, the drummer, actually, he still plays music for a living, I believe. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. And the other couple of guys are just, I don't know, they're just working and carrying on with life, I suppose. I don't think they play much music these days. Yeah.
So now your sort of main focus is your original music. And I'd love to know sort of how that works. I feel like everyone kind of knows it's hard to make money off original music, way harder than any other revenue stream, I guess. So how does that kind of fit in with other things that you do?
Yeah, it's funny because I think as soon as you drop the ball on the original stuff, it then becomes even more difficult to make money on that side of things, because you've got to have the momentum to push you forward. And I noticed that there was a massive drop when I had a little boy me and my wife had a little boy during lockdown of 2020, and I just decided to stop my original music for a bit, because it was just taking too much of my time. And I wasn't in the right headspace for it. I'd actually stopped enjoying it because I didn't know what I was doing, or I didn't have a clear vision for it. I believe I'm like a massive believer in creative visualization. I don't know if you have the same thing with that, where you like, in order to do something, you have to visualize it first and almost see like an end game to it. Yeah. With this original project, I've always struggled with seeing the actual end goal or what I want to achieve from it, other than turning up, doing the gig, maybe recording a few songs, and you know what I mean? It's
seeing where it goes.
Yeah, seeing where it goes. There's not like with being a session musician, there's you can actually visualize what's going to happen. Essentially, you learn the set, you go and play the gig, you do some tours, and then you come back home, and that's the gig. That's what you do. There's no kind of, you don't need to be an entrepreneur. You don't need to have any ideas outside of playing music. You just play the music. That's what you do. With the original side of things, you are everything. If you're an independent artist, you're the manager, you're the record label, you are you do your own PR if you can't find somebody to do it and you don't have the budget to do that.
Yeah.
So it's all these little jobs, and you wear these. You essentially wear these hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and essentially one suffers if you. It's like you have to be like, it's all in essentially, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to just stop it for a bit to kind of realign what I actually wanted to do back in 2020. I had my little boy, and then kind of middle of last year, 2023, I decided that it would be a good idea to pick it up. Having said that, I picked it up, and it's just been really tricky to kind of push that forward, more so now than it was when I first started doing it, because it's like trying to pick up the pieces
Mm-hmm.
and stitch something back together, or find a new rhythm for it, or a new, what do you actually want to do with it? What are you trying to market? How are you going to try and get people interested in what it is you actually do as a musician, as a songwriter, as a performer? And then of course things have changed since 4 years ago, because now the emphasis on is now more so TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It's just shifted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I saw anyway. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. If it wasn't happening then, it was definitely going to happen. Spotify Wrapped has just come out, and it's like, everybody who is on Spotify will share their favorite artists, and whether or not those artists are actually making any money from it it's I don't know, it's just changed, man. It's changed. So I think that's why it's really important, or I think for me anyway, to be as diverse as you can in 2024, moving forward into 2025 and beyond. Because I think if you were to put all your eggs in one basket and say, right, this is what I want to do, or this is who I want to be, I think I know a lot of people who have done that, and who have ultimately, it's been to their detriment, man. They've they have really suffered, because whether or not it's, I always wanted to just be a performer and come and be pushed on stage and just do my thing. But I don't think that's realistic. There's probably a handful of people that will make it work, but for the majority, I think you do need to have other skills. I think you do need to just accept the fact that Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, all of those things, it's something that can essentially help you on your way to having a half decent business. Mm-hmm. Or at least bring in some revenue. Yeah.
So do you use all these other aspects to sort of...
Well, this is what I was going to say. No, I don't.
Right.
And these are the thoughts that I've been having about how I push myself forward, because I think in 10 years' time, I will be one of those people who I'm talking about now, if I don't act soon.
Yeah.
And think to myself, right, so this is the way that this is going. If you want to continue to have a career in music, then it might be a good idea to start thinking about how you can implement all these different skills and push them towards an end goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's food for thought for anybody who's in a creative industry, perhaps. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about session work and stuff. When did you start doing sort of that professionally?
Yeah, so when I was 19, I'd left sixth form. I did a little bit of gigging with a band in Northampton called Danny Connors and the Ladders. Danny Connors now plays for Tom Grennan. Right. He's the guitarist at MD. So I met like a little hub of musicians off the back of that band. And who I'm still friends with now. So Adam, who was in that band, we now run Foundry Street Studio in Northampton, which is another revenue stream. And yeah, Dan and Adam both play in Tom Grennan's band. And yeah, so it kind of stemmed from there. That enabled me to understand what it was to be a session musician, because essentially what I did was I came on to do the keyboard player's job with this band called The Ladders. And we I don't know, Danny just had a knack of making you, because he was the leader of the band, he just had a knack of making you understand how to play a part and integrate into a band correctly without stepping on anyone's toes, musically speaking, and be like playing for the song and playing the material and playing the same thing night in and night out. So what happened was that band kind of just, it kind of just dwindled, and it just stopped for one reason or another. And then I got an opportunity to go and play for the Selector, which is a ska band from the two-tone movement back in the late 70s. So you had bands like the Specials, Bad Manners, Madness, Body Snatchers, The Beat, and one of those bands was the Selector, which was fronted by Pauline Black and Gaps Hendrickson. And because I'd done that job with Danny Connors and the Ladders, I'd basically just been sent all this material. I went for the audition, and I just learned it perfectly because I'd had this almost like this training from Dan and the band as how to kind of integrate into, I don't know, just like perform in a band as part of a band.
Yeah.
And bring a little bit of personality, but not too much that you cloud the intention of the music, you know, the original intention. So I got the job anyway. And I was like, this is great because this is what I want to do. I just wanted to be in a band, man. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to go on tour, play my keyboard, and just be with like-minded people. I was the youngest in the band as well, so I was only 19. I think the oldest, I think Gaps was the oldest, who sadly passed away this year. We went to his funeral in Coventry. It was dead sad. The poor guy had cancer. He was in his... Yeah, it was just really... It was sad because I spent a long time on the road with him, and it was 5 years I spent in that band. So it was a lovely service, but you create a bond with people who you're on the road with. You know, there's different to any other bond that you probably make in your life because you go through thick and thin with these guys. You know, you're traveling with them all the time. So yeah, it was really sad, but they're still going. The Selector, Pauline's still fronting it, and they're still going strong, which is really, really great, and I'm dead pleased for that. So yeah, it was just a matter of going on tour with those guys. We did loads of gigs. We went to Australia, we did America, we did Coachella Festival, we did Ink and Iron, we did Riot Fest, we did Isle of Wight. We did loads. We produced about 4 albums in that time. We did a live album and 3 studio albums. It was just a really magical time, but I got tired of it. I think about 3 years in, I recognised that I just understood that it was limiting on what I wanted to do in the long run. Are you a fan of ska music? Do you like? Yeah. So it's kind of, I think as a keyboard player and a guitarist, the way that I viewed it after a while, the way that I saw it, if you're thinking about music, ska has got a thing to it in which the guitarist and the keyboard players play on the offbeat, right? So you don't dictate where the music goes. The people that do dictate where the music goes is the drummer and the bass player, because they play on the 1, traditionally speaking, and the 3, whereas keyboards and guitars, they play on the jack, 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 jack. So after a while, that rhythm becomes really monotonous, and you start realizing there is actual like limitations with this music, like there is any other, you know, if it's blues, jazz. But ska just seemed to be like, I hit my head on the roof really quickly with it, and I wanted to go somewhere else. And I just had an opportunity when I was 25 to then go into the West End and work with Kyle Ryabko, who had co-conceived this show with Burt Bacharach. And I left the Selector and went into that and went back to my roots of theatre, which was really cool. Yeah. So I did that for a year and worked on the show with them, which was amazing. I met some great musicians, and we were a cast of 7, and we worked in, we were at the Criterion Theatre on Piccadilly Circus, and that was a magical time. Burt Bacharach was amazing. I'll never forget the time that I spent with those guys from the cast, and I'm still friends with them now. We still speak, so that's really cool. And yeah, it was a good step to take for me as a musician.
Yeah, kind of a relief not being on the road anymore as well, or.
So I stopped going on the road. We went out to America actually with that show for about 3 weeks to do rehearsals, and then I came back and I didn't do any touring for about 2-3 years actually. And funny enough, I hadn't actually done any function stuff before this. I hadn't got into any function bands because there was no. I don't know. There wasn't a necessity for it.
Yeah, it sounds like you were already busy. So
yeah, so there was no like, oh, I need to make ends meet, or there must be, I need to find another revenue stream that can maybe pay me some money or get some work out when I'm not necessarily out on tour with these bands. So yeah, that's essentially that's what happened leading up to when I turned 26, and then the show finished in February of 2016. Sorry, yeah, and that's when I kind of had to go into function world because of necessity, I suppose.
So had you started your Originals band by this point for the first time?
Yeah, so essentially I'd just basically saved a load of money up during my time in the West End, and I thought it was as good a time as any just to kind of explore the solo project a little bit more. So we did like a gig at the 100 Club in London straight after I'd finished the West End show. We did the original show, and then we went. Yeah, we kind of, I released my first album around that time, and then we did a tour, and it was really cool. We did a few good blues festivals up and down the UK. We did some good, I don't know, we got some good radio play, and the album was just really well received. So I think I did that at the right time. And that was about 2 years, I think, between 2016 and 2018 when that started to get going properly, and I started to think, oh, well, maybe this is something I can do. And it just, I don't know, because I didn't have management and we didn't have a record label. Again, like going back to what I was saying earlier about wearing these different hats. And I just fell out of love with it a little bit, because really the emphasis wasn't on playing the music. It wasn't even doing the gigs. It was like responding to emails and the logistics and managing a band. Mate, that is a job. That is a job.
In any other business, like that is one person's job for all of these different roles, right? It's so hard to do it with yourself.
Yeah. And I was waking up in the mornings thinking, I can't believe, like, I didn't end up enjoying the gigs because all my energy and all my time would have been spent, I don't know, like leading up to it, just like working on the logistics and organising, and then musicians are fickle, mate. They're fickle. They'll say they do a gig, and then if something better comes up, you can guarantee they're going to go off-piste, and you won't see them for another month, which, I totally get it. It's absolutely fine. If you want to do that, you've got to do what's right for you in the moment, because there are bigger and better things out there. Absolutely. And it's about identifying when to make those decisions, I suppose. Yeah. And I've done it, it's like, it's not, I'm sure you have as well. You've had those moments in time where you thought, I need to go and do this. And you've just made that decision. And I think that there's a lot of strength in that anyway, because I believe that to make a living out of generally speaking, as a self-employed individual, I think that's the job, isn't it? That's part of the job, to make those decisions and to identify when is a good time to maybe jump ship, or accept an offer that you haven't accepted before. Yeah. And then you suddenly realize that, oh, well, there's only one of me, so I can only be present. Unless you've got passive income, I can only be present on that day. And it's stating blatantly obvious, but I think loads of people struggle with that. The calendar management and all that stuff. It's like, it's an absolute nightmare. Yeah.
I mean, that brings me on. So you work closely with Danielle Knights. Obviously, that's how we kind of got introduced, who has been on the podcast before, and she runs Live and Love Music. So does she run a lot of that sort of day-to-day stuff for you now? And has that like freed your mind to just focus on important things?
Danielle, mate, I met Danielle May of this year, right? So she came to the Tameside Brewery for one of the Matt Long benefit concerts, who sadly we lost Matt this year due to cancer, which was so sad. And there was another one that we did at the Stables, which was great as well. But unfortunately, I think for Matt, the cancer had just taken. It was just really vicious. We lost him. It was so sad. But I did meet Danielle at one of those benefit concerts. And she just liked what I did. And we got in touch after that, and she said she might be able to help me. And at the time, I just finished doing a little kind of comeback tour in February, and just realizing that, again, having that moment where you go, oh my God, this is a lot of work to do, especially when you're trying to run different businesses, different revenue streams. You know, there's a studio to run in Northampton. There's my session musician stuff. I've got kids. I've got a wife. I've got a mortgage. There's all this stuff that's happening. Thanks to Danielle, it's just taken the pressure off.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate because not everybody has that. And she's great. She's really cool. She'll leave me to my own devices if I don't, if I've got too much on, but she'll just be working behind the scenes, which enables me to do this essentially.
Yeah.
We're having this conversation today. I'm not having to worry about the ins and outs of what's going on, logistically speaking, for maybe next year when we've got plans and stuff. So that's great.
This podcast is sponsored by my business, InFocus Recording Company. At InFocus, we specialize in creating exciting cinematic show reels for professional function musicians. We also offer photo shoots and custom logo design, helping you bring all your branding together into one cohesive package. Whether you're a solo artist or part of a 12-piece luxury show band, having standout promo material and strong branding is essential to growing your business and booking more gigs. If you're interested in checking out some of our work and learning more, head over to infocusrecordingcompany.co.uk. So tell me about the studio. What's the what kind of stuff do you do there?
So I aside from doing all the session stuff and doing all my solo stuff, I run Foundry Street Studio, which was kind of born out of lockdown. I found a space in Northampton that's in this brewery, and we got asked to basically come in and take over this room. That at the time, it was weird, man, because these things just happen, and I'm not that impulsive when it comes to these kinds of opportunities, but because we were made an offer, I was made an offer I couldn't refuse. Like, the rent was really low.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let's just set something up. So we set something up. I got my mate Adam, who I spoke about earlier, who plays for Tom Grennan, and we set this wonderful room up. And it wasn't. We never intended it to be commercial. It just happened. So during lockdown, when we were allowed to kind of travel for work, one of us would go to the studio and set some stuff up, and then I'd come back home and then another person would go, and so we just weave in and out. Mm-hmm. So we weren't treading on each other's toes for the purposes of COVID and keeping socially distanced and all that stuff. So we set it up, and then I've always been into production. I used to have little tape recorders when I was a kid, so I've always been recording, and I've always been into production without me. It was a bit like the MD thing that I was saying earlier. I didn't realize I was being a musical director until somebody pointed it out. And I didn't realize I was producing music until somebody pointed it out.
Yeah.
So I'd never say to people, oh, I'm a producer. It's only because out of doing it, because somebody else couldn't do it. And I put that hat on and say, well, I'll record you, or I'll record myself. So I'd spend hours in my room of a weekend with my little Korg 4-track recorder, which would then later evolve into a Boss 8-track recorder, which was a digital thing. And then I get a condenser mic and there's some pair headphones. So you just end up buying these little bits of equipment, and then before you know it, you're producing your own music, and then you're bouncing around to CDs, and you're training your ears without even knowing you're doing it, because you're interested in it and you're obsessed by it. And again, just like learning to play an instrument, it becomes a compulsion. And what it was for me initially, it was I wanted to hear what a song would sound like if I put some bass on it, or if I put a guitar on it, or if I put some backing vocals on it, or a synth. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to hear the layers. And that really, for me, I still get a kick out of that now, man. I still get a kick when I get to the studio and I get in the flow of it. And there comes a moment in the day, if you start at 9, you'll get to 3, mate, and you've got this wonderful thing that you've created. whether it's by yourself
Yeah.
or with another musician, but you've created this thing from nothing. It didn't exist before you sat there and you applied yourself and you focused and you went, right, this is how I want it to sound.
Yeah.
And made it sound like that. And because you've had that training since you were, since I was like, well, I don't know, I was listening to Steely Dan records when I was 5. So probably since then. And before that, you're actively listening, you're analysing all these things, and it's because you're obsessed by it and it's a natural thing for you to do.
Yeah.
So that's how the studio came about. We set it up, and then we had clients approaching us to do these like production packages.
How did you find them? Did they just come to you? Or?
They just came to us, man. They were like, oh, could you maybe, I think I put a Facebook post saying like, look, if anyone's interested in doing some recording, we've got some recording packages. We can produce your music. And then like anything else, it just grows.
Yeah.
Your circles grow. So you produce one person's track, they hear it, and then you go to that person's, and it just builds and becomes something. I never had to try it.
That was going to be my next question, because running a studio that's not an easy task. And especially when you've got like a premises that you got to pay rent for, you got bills to pay, you got equipment to keep up. If you suddenly have a dry month on something like that, then you're in trouble, right? So I mean, it sounds like to me you've built a great network of people from your time touring and stuff like that. So is that literally your main sort of method of getting clients?
Yeah, so it's essentially word of mouth, but having that personal interaction with people that you meet. So it's not so much of a lot of my business doesn't come from people who have never met me before. Mm-hmm. It's normally I've met them on the road, or I've met them at a jam, or I've met them at a gig, or somebody has seen me play somewhere and understands that I run this business. Mm-hmm. We've got a whole Spotify playlist of things that we've produced, which helps.
Yeah.
And we've got, Studio, Northampton, Google business profiles, so people can get in touch with us if they want. And we've got a fully, if you look on the studio website, we've got different packages. We've got packages for singer-songwriters, for bands, but also as well, I do a lot of personal work with clients inside the studio. So aside from the Foundry Street studio label, people will just want to work with me personally.
Yeah.
So whatever we do in the studio, that's what we do. But there's people who want me to do piano tracks and Hammond organ tracks, or they want me to compose for theatre and things like that, which is a job that I did this year. I had to do Nell Gwynn with and it was Baroque music fused with drum and bass, which was amazing.
I can't even imagine what that sounds like.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was really good fun as well, because actually it just lent itself really well. So if you think about the instrumentation, it's like harpsichords, string sections, but then you've got this drum and bass beat underneath with a sub bass line. Mate, it was really good. It was cool. And the lyrics were all provided because it was part of Nell Gwynn, which is a written piece. But that was through someone who knew me personally and commissioned me to do the work. So there's different ways that that you can make money out of the studio, whether it's from the studio banner, Foundry Street Studio, and people don't know me personally, or people know me personally, and then you end up doing the work in the studio, and they want to work with you on a one-to-one basis. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. So did you say there's someone else that runs it with you as well? So that must take a bit of the stress off if you're kind of not in it by yourself.
It did, until the bugger decided to move to Amsterdam. So it's really me who's running it at the moment, and bless him, he wears loads of hats, and is great at being, just to diversify as a musician. He's not just a drummer who plays for Tom Grennan. He is a great producer. We work together on stuff at Foundry Street Studio. He's a fantastic engineer, and he just has an ability to, again, just work with people and realize their visions.
Yeah.
And understand what it is they actually want to do, creatively speaking. Now he's moved to Amsterdam with his wife. He's now working for a backline company, which when he's not on the road with Tom Grennan, he's setting up other people's drums. So again, it's not having that kind of like mindset of, I want to be a drummer, I'm just going to play drums. It's about, how can I make money in the music industry or music business? How can I make a career out of that?
That's age-old question, right? So
and he's successful with it as well. He's really, as am I. We do the, you can compare the two kind of careers and say, well, yeah, they're good instrumentalists, but they also are very good at this and very good at that, and they can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think for people who are listening to this, that I think that is really important. I used to lecture at Northampton College for music business and music industry, and that was one of my main points. And I think in the syllabus anyway, it was about understanding the nature of revenue streams and how we can actually make money and make a living in the business. And because it's changing as well, you always have to keep an eye on that as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned it earlier with all the social media stuff, TikTok and all that. Do you use that at all for any of your businesses?
So I use Instagram and I use Facebook. I've yet to join TikTok because I think I might drown in it.
Yeah.
Do you have TikTok?
Nah, I haven't.
Yeah. So I think if I go down that rabbit hole, I've succumbed then.
Yeah, I've only just getting a handle on Instagram how many years after I should have done. And that's enough for me. Like, I can't mentally cope with anything else.
But it messes with your head as well. It's not good for your mental health.
I would absolutely love to get rid of it all, but it's unfortunately it's impossible if you're trying to run a business.
Exactly, and it's like, it's almost one of those things like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And I do this thing where I'm almost anxious about doing a post because if I go to the effort of doing a post, which I try to do more now than I ever have done, regularly speaking, and if it doesn't hit for whatever reason, I just feel like I've wasted my time.
Yeah.
I've wasted my life and I've wasted my energy on something that people aren't interested in.
Yeah.
And you don't get the instant gratification by saying, oh, well, that why didn't that post get 150 likes or something? Do you know, it's just mad. And obviously because it's now gone past that initial thing of, it's not just a dopamine hit anymore when someone likes your post. It's actually probably directly affecting your business.
Yeah. And I get, as always, the ones I think that are going to do the best do the worst as well.
I know. And the amount of people that I've spoken to about what you just said is crazy. We don't know what's going on. I don't think we have any comprehension of what it is to make a good social media post. And I think the people that do make a living out of it and make a career out of it, they're ahead of the curve, man. They've got something, that's what they're good at.
Yeah. So let's move on to some of your best gigs and your worst gigs, some cool experiences that you've had. As I said, I've read on your website that you opened for Queens of the Stone Age. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Yeah,
it was the most rock and roll tour I've ever been on. Not. I was bored, man. I was bored. This is the thing, right? You get to a level like that, and it becomes really corporate.
Really?
Yeah, man. So it sounds like I'm being ungrateful. I'm not. I'm just trying to shed light on how one might feel when they're doing something like that.
That's interesting, man. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I could say, Jack, it was wild, man. Queens of the Stone Age are wild. We had a wild time. I didn't. We played from 8 o'clock to 8:45. This is a band called Spiritualized, by the way, who I sometimes play for. So we went on tour with Queens last year. We were invited as special guests. Well, Jason was invited as a special guest. I just happened to be playing keyboards. I joined Spiritualized when I was back in 2017, and my first gig was in Melbourne with them. So I had to fly all the way to Melbourne to do this gig with them, which was great. I was really pleased, and and it was with an orchestra, so it was really intense back in 2017. I remember that being like a real kind of, I don't know, moment of like, oh my God, it's such a lot of material to learn. It's this big show. It was like a 2-hour show, and there's me playing the keyboards. So yeah, we did that Queens of the Stone Age tour in December last year. First thing to note is I had to move my entire tour, my Greg Colson tour, to February, March of this year in order to accommodate doing the Queens of the Stone Age tour. So I had to be in my bonnet about that anyway. The other thing is worth mentioning, I'm completely sober now. I haven't had a drink in nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
So to tour, and don't get me, I've done tours completely sober before I made that decision, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster between drinking, not drinking, and just making that decision to just cut it out completely for one reason or another. But a lot of the time when I was younger and I was on tour, you can fill massive gaps of your day and evenings by just getting absolutely obliterated.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you come home and your head's going, and you just continue that habit.
Yeah.
Until it starts affecting your mental health and your overall disposition. It's it became a massive problem for me and an issue, and it really changed me as a human being. And I feel like 2 years off the booze is really, I don't know, it's just reset my head.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm now back to where I was probably when I was, I'd say 18, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So going on tour with a band like Queens of the Stone Age, sober, having moved my tour, and being away from my family on my birthday as well, it just sucked.
Yeah.
It just sucked. And I think I'm really trying my best not to be like ungrateful.
Yeah.
But there are moments in your life where you go, for God's sake, I'm on tour with Queens of the Stone Age, and this is shit. That's not right, man. That's a weird place to be, right?
Yeah.
Play for 40 minutes every night. I tell you what, though, Queens of the Stone Age, Josh is a wicked singer. I love that band. It was good. That's what I enjoyed most about them.
Yeah.
I liked listening to I Sat by the Ocean every night. I love that song. And they're great. They're really lovely guys. They were so accommodated and so just like beautiful humans and talented, actually properly talented. All the guys in the band are just like top players, great guitarists, great performers on stage, and it was a proper rock and roll show. Like, they had like great lighting and the sound was mega, and they were playing arenas. We finished at the Kia Forum actually in Los Angeles, and it was a great show. It was packed. It was wicked. And I remember we did Silent Night with Spiritualized because it was around Christmas. So that was actually a really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of MDing for that. So that was kind of a nice way to end it. But for the most part, I missed my family.
Yeah.
I was pretty fed up, and I remember getting really sick as well. So I suppose it's just, the moral to the story is, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
It's really not. Like, it's fantastic if you get these opportunities, and absolutely, for God's sake, do them. Like, I'm not saying don't do them. Really do. You've got to. You have to. Like, you'd be an idiot if you didn't. But also take it with a pinch of salt. For someone like me who's a session musician, you're not a rock and roll star. You probably get treated just like the backline crew do, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. You're probably on less money actually than the backline crew.
That's going to be one of my questions, Matt. Is there some sort of hierarchy with stuff like that? Like, I know, like, from my experience with like film sets and stuff like that, there is like a strict hierarchy, and you don't kind of go above your station and things like that. Does it work the same with like session musicians and like more established artists and stuff?
I just think as a musician, you're just at the bottom of the pile. I really do. I think I've come to notice that. And again, it's going back to that thing of like taking control of your career and actually like assessing what it is and how you can make a living out of it. Because what you don't want to do is have somebody controlling you unless you want to be controlled, unless that's unless that's what you want to do. So in terms of a hierarchy, 100%, yeah, like don't step on the stage when the main band is on. Don't go near the stage. This is the number one thing. Don't hang around the headline band. Don't bother them. There's little things that you can do to help yourself, like just stay on your tour bus. Don't make a nuisance of yourself. Don't be an idiot. just do your job and hope that somebody might give you another gig thereafter. So like on film sets, I'm sure there is like this. There's probably like, I don't know, maybe there's not the job titles, but there's definitely an unspoken like rule, like don't go and nick the headliner's rider, which somebody may have actually did and got bollocked for. It's you know what I mean? It's like, don't do that.
Did they know what they were doing, or did they just stumble into the wrong room? Or can you stumble into the wrong room?
They were drunk and they walked into the Queen's dressing room and nicked the rider, and then there was just this thing that happened, which has like soured the water essentially, and just made it like unpleasant. But then, someone gets wind of that in the crew, and then the tour manager gets a bee in their bonnet about it, starts pointing their finger, you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing that. Luckily for me, on this occasion, I'm completely sober. So there's no way I'm going to behave like that or do anything like that. But for the people who are, running around like headless chickens, trying to find the booze, I just think, don't do that. That's insane.
Yeah. So how about one of your best gig experiences then? Something a real fond memory you've got.
Yeah, so I'm so privileged. I know I'm moaning about the Queen's thing, but really that's not many people can say that they've done that and continue to have those opportunities. I've done some amazing gigs. I've done some great gigs with the Selector. Isle of Wight was fantastic many years ago. The first time I played Coachella Festival was amazing. Yeah. Back in 2012. I just remember thinking, God, you've just achieved something here. This is an achievement. Because again, to do Coachella, I don't know, I've done it twice now. Well, actually, I've done it 4 times in total because you do it over the course of 2 weekends. So technically speaking, I've done it 4 times, but for bands, you just say you do it twice, right? But in terms of my stuff, I've done some great gigs in my own right as well. One of the best gigs I've done for my stuff is probably Peggy's Skylight in Nottingham. Mm-hmm. I loved that show last year, and that was before I went to do my Queens of the Stone Age tour with Spiritualized, and that was in my own right. We did 2 shows and it was just great. Again, like there's a great venue in Luton called the Bear Club, and some of the best shows I've ever done. You know the Bear? Yeah. Man, you know what? Those guys have got it going. They know what they're doing. They're promoting people like myself, and they push it, and they make sure that there's a crowd there, and you get paid, and you just get treated with a bit of respect and a bit of decorum, and just, you're not having to like scrat around and be made to feel like you're not welcome. Yeah. I've done some great shows there, and we're coming back in February actually as part of my EP release tour, which we'll get on to later, but I'm sure. But yeah, some great gigs over the years. I've done some great tours. Some of the best shows I've done have been in the theatre as well. So the Burt Bacharach show that I was talking about, we did, I think in total, we did about 250 shows over the course of that period. And they of course, because you do it in the same theatre, they all blend into one. So I've just got really fond memories of that. And also as well, it's not just what happens on stage. It's what happens before and after. You get some really surreal moments before you go on stage. You're in the. I remember being at the Troubadour in Los Angeles before we're going on stage, and I'm talking about how to make scones. And the best recipes and stuff like that. So it's just the juxtaposition, I suppose, of those memories. And then you go on and do a killer show at the Troubadour. But the people in the audience don't know that you're talking about like the ins and outs of how to make a good scone.
Yeah.
I'm made. All right, we'll have a good show then. Yeah, see you afterwards. So I've got memories like that. There's also like memories of doing like really great shows in like Europe, like in Spain and Italy, and just flying out there and playing to like masses of people because the whole town comes out. We did one this year. We did the Pignola Blues Festival with a harmonica player I play with called Will Wild. And the whole town comes out, man. It's just like a flood of people. I mean, we're not particularly well known in that capacity. Will Wild is not Liam Gallagher.
Yeah.
And yet the whole town, thousands of people have come to see Will Wild on that night and make him feel like he is Oasis.
Yeah.
Europe's got it down, man. They know what they're doing in terms of gigs. They've got a great sense of, how to put on a show. This is rock and roll. We're going to make an event. England, mate, they don't know what they're doing. Unless it's Glastonbury, unless it's Isle of Wight. People don't know what they've got because we are the OGs in terms of, we're the source. The Beatles came out of this country. How do we top that?
Yeah. 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 No, my same experience with Europe as well. Back when I used to play in a band years and years and years ago. We could sell out a show in Europe, no problem. Then they wouldn't know who we were, just because they want to go out to a show, which just doesn't happen or didn't happen then anyway for us in England. But
people in this country, they want to watch Coronation Street, they want to watch Love Island, they want to listen to Ed Sheeran, and they want to go Frankie and Benny's. That's what the majority of people want to do. I walked my kid down to school this morning, and I can guarantee you 95% of those people that are dropping their kids off, that's what they do.
Yeah.
100%. And that's not to discredit what they do. I'm just saying it's more of an observation. I'm not trying to dig anyone out, but for musicians like myself and you, and for people who are in the creative industry and who maybe, want to go and look at a painting. They want to go and look at Klimt. I don't know. They want to go to an art gallery in Paris, or they want to go and watch a film that isn't necessarily Spider-Man, or do you know what I mean? Or they want to go and watch a band that no one's heard of. They want to go to Pizza Express Soho because it belongs in a vacuum, right? It doesn't exist in the day-to-day because we live in England. I think there's a lot of people, and it's not, if you're not on Radio 1, you might as well not exist.
Yeah.
And I do look at there's some amazing songwriters and performers and instrumentalists that just don't get their opportunity because it's just clouded by just McDonald's music.
Yeah, I feel you, man.
I mean, I love McDonald's. I was at McDonald's last night with my boy, getting a cheeseburger, sitting down, having a Fanta, and that's absolutely fine. It's cool if you want to do that. And again, I'm not digging anyone out. It's just an observation. And again, that's why I go back to that thing of I think as musicians, we just need to diversify and assume that people don't know what the hell it is they're listening to or looking at or watching.
Yeah.
People are not that discerning.
Awesome. Yeah. So
that was a proper rant there. And another thing, there's a dead pigeon in the water tank. Otherwise, okay.
So we're getting to the end of the year right now. Well, as we're recording this, anyways. So what's kind of next for you? What does next year look like? Have you kind of got a plan for the whole year, or just kind of take it as it comes?
Yeah, so it's really busy next year. We've got my live EP is coming out in February. I've just realised the time, by the way.
You're good.
I've got my EP coming out, which is live at Crescent Record Studio. That's coming out February 7th. We've just had all the physical copies delivered, and we are going on to a 10-day tour in Feb, which is cool. And then on top of that, we've got a couple of festivals to do. We've also got I'm doing a tour with Tom Seals, actually a great keys player. We're doing Ali Ash and Jeanette, which are two Strictly Come Dancing. I don't know what Strictly Come Dancing, but we're doing a tour throughout June with those guys. It's like songs from the shows or something. Yeah. And then there's loads of stuff that I'm doing spiritualized. We're doing Pure Phase in its entirety, and also on top of that, I'm going out with Will Wild, who I mentioned earlier, who's this amazing harmonica player. Please check him out if you haven't already. He's got a YouTube chat following of like millions, so he doesn't need to talk about him or big him up. But yeah, we've got a tour. His album's coming out. So Jack, it's just busy, man.
Yeah,
it's just brilliant. I'm really excited about it. I've got a little bit of January off, but I'm sure I'll be back in the studio doing loads of stuff with different clients and working on their music. I work with a load of people. There's a singer-songwriter I work with called Thea Watson. She's coming in the studio and working. She's supporting us on my February tour. There's Marlia Ray, who I produced. There's Silky Wilford, who I produced. All these names you'll all be able to get them on Spotify and everything. And it just continues to grow, which is really inspiring for me. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Good to be busy as well, right?
Yeah.
So just to end the show quick fire round, some quick questions for some, usually not so quick answers actually, but you can apply these to whatever kind of business you fancy, any of the things you do. So what is the most effective thing you've done to market one of your businesses?
Just say yes. Say yes to everything. Just be present.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like just try and take every opportunity as it comes. If you see it as a challenge, it's a good thing. But and also go the extra mile for people. If you're going to do something, make sure you do it properly. Don't do a half-assed attempt. If you're in it, you're in it for good.
Yeah. And
you want to, whatever you've been asked to do, you make sure that you give it 100%.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Don't fail. Don't fail.
What have you learned in the last 3 months that you wish you knew 3 years ago?
Probably to focus a little bit more on the social media side of things and apply myself to that side of my career more so, because I think it would have served me well now had I have done that. But my plan is in the next kind of year to 2 years to push that forward a little bit more. So I think if anyone's listening to this, just make sure that is a priority. It's a bit of a necessary evil if you don't enjoy it. I don't particularly enjoy it, but I think we can all benefit from shouting about ourselves and what we can do for other people on platforms like Instagram, maybe TikTok. I don't know. I don't use it, so I can't speak for that. But I definitely, my views on this have changed over the past 3 months. So I definitely say that I've learned that, maybe that was probably something that I should have focused on.
If you were just starting out now, so back when you were, 13 when you were starting out, but what was the first thing that you'd do to sort of start getting some work in?
Yeah, I'd probably be a bit more proactive with networking. I'd probably be a bit bolder. I don't think I had the confidence to actually reach out to people back then. I didn't know how to reach out. I didn't know what to do. Unless somebody reached out to me, it would be a question of me sitting by the phone and waiting. I don't think there's any harm in sending some emails to some people, and don't be fearful of rejection. It's going to happen. You probably will get some rejection emails come through, but don't let that put you off. Just keep going. Be persistent. Don't worry about what people think about you online. You just got to keep moving forward and ignore the noise.
That's what they say, man. The only people that fail are the ones that have stopped trying.
100%.
So what is the biggest mistake you've made in one of your businesses, and what did you learn from it?
I mentioned it earlier, actually, dropping my solo project for the time that I did. Having said that, I feel like it was necessary to understand what it was what I did want to do, and it relit the fire in me. Because I think if I'd have kept going, I would have burnt out with the original concept. So it was good for me to drop it and come back to it, but I also feel like because the progression of Facebook and all social medias has changed and the algorithm has changed to when I was first using it, that's a bit of a learning curve to understand what I'm actually trying to push out to people and how to recognize, how to work the algorithm in your favor a little bit. That's bit I've struggled with that massively.
Yeah, I'm definitely still trying to figure that out.
I know it's tricky, man, isn't it? I just think you get to the point where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this rubbish? Like, are people interested in what I was doing 4 years ago? So, but having said that, it's good because it's also made me think about how I can be more creative and I've got to enjoy it. I think.
Yeah.
I think I'd enjoy making content in the studio.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it, and it kind of comes across more authentic as well, which is always going to be good.
Yeah. You see these people on YouTube, and it's like I think that the people that want to do it enjoy doing it.
Yeah,
they look like they're having a right good time. And that's the thing as well. Like, I never set out as a kid to be a videographer or a producer. It's kind of like I said to my wife yesterday, I can't believe how much time I now spend on a laptop. I don't understand how I got here. I try and play the piano every day. I've got my upright there, and I do try and play it every day because really that's the art, isn't it? But also as well, there is an art in keeping on top of the technology side of things and, keeping up with the Joneses and stuff like that. I do think so. Yeah.
And last question then, do you use any specific tools or apps to manage your business? I feel like your answer for this one should just be get yourself a Danielle, but...
Get yourself a Danielle. Everybody needs a Danielle. I could write a song about that. Everybody needs a Danielle in their lives. Get yourself just clued up with as much as you can technology-wise. Do as much as you can yourself. I know that contradicts what I said earlier about, wearing too many hats, but also... It's good to... I tell you what I got really good at. Canva.
Yeah.
Mate, I love Canva.
That one comes up a lot.
Because I can't stand it when people do poster designs for me. And I'm like, mate, do you know what you've actually produced? Because normally it's like people at venues and restaurants and promoters who aren't designers and they're just doing it themselves. Luckily for us, who are, in inverted commas, creative and probably have are discerning and do have an eye for it, maybe dabble in photography, it's maybe a bit easier for us to design a poster than we thought it was. Because again, it goes back to that thing of having the ability, but without not necessarily knowing what it is we were doing at that time. I never knew I was training my ears until someone told me I was doing it. And the same as doing the design, I've always been taking photos on the phone and making sure that it looks nice and stuff. If you can do that, probably you can design a really good poster on Canva.
Yeah.
And knock it up dead quickly. Also getting good at website designs, distribution as well for music online, Spotify, just knowing how to do that, working with distribution companies. I work with Cobalt, AWOL, and that's, again, it's another learning curve. Wix, Google business profiles, stuff. Not that I'm great at all the SEO, but I do know a certain amount that got me to a level where I could put my Google profile together and understand that if somebody wants a studio in Northampton, they're going to probably come across my studio.
Yeah.
So.
Nice, man. This has been awesome. Really, really, really enjoyed it. So just to finish things off.
Too much, Jack. I feel
not at all.
On for
that's what these are, man. This is what a podcast is. Man, it's been great, man. There's been loads of little great nuggets in there as well. But just lastly, where if people wanted to find out more about you or see what you're up to, whereabouts would you send them?
Just simply type in Greg Colson on Google and loads of stuff will come up. You'll see my silly little face in the image boxes, probably with a guitar or piano or staring down the lens like a gormless fool I am. You'll see it there. It'll all be there. And you can follow me as well. Follow me and see what I'm up to, and come to a show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Get to a show. Like I said before, man, it was I've really enjoyed it, and it's just I felt like it was something a bit different as well. I don't know, something I hadn't seen before, but definitely get to that if you can. Yeah, man, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Feelings mutual. Cheers, Jack.
So there we go. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And I just want to say a big thank you to Greg again for coming on and chatting to me. I'd highly recommend catching one of his live shows if you can. And if you want to find out any of those dates or see what he gets up to, you can find him on Instagram at the Greg Coulson or www.gregcoulson.co.uk. And as usual, all of those links will be in the episode description, along with anything else I've mentioned. So that's it. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next week for episode 4.